My name is Eli Marrow, and the last normal thing I remember is unlocking a supply closet at a school that actually existed in daylight. A real school, with real kids, real noise, real life. But that was before everything shifted, before the building that shouldn't exist started appearing in places where it never belonged, before it followed me, before it learned my name. God, let me start properly. If I don't tell this calmly, I won't get through it. I was a janitor for 20 years. Not glamorous, not respected, but steady. I knew how to make floors shine. I knew how to unclog things no human being should ever touch. And I knew how to keep my head down. After the divorce, the debts, the constant dragging exhaustion, I needed extra hours anywhere I could get them. That's why the paper mattered. It slid under my apartment door one night without a sound. No knock, no footsteps, just a white sheet on the floor like a summons. Night custodial position pay, $40 per hour 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. report, immediately no interview required. That line, no interview required, should have stopped me cold. But when life is crushing you, anything that looks like a rope starts to look like salvation. I guess I grabbed the rope without checking if it was tied to something or if it was a noose. The building was in a dead industrial district, wedged between two warehouses that looked abandoned even when the sun hit them. But the school, this so-called school, didn't belong there. It was old brick, 3 stories tall, windows dark as mirrors that didn't want to reflect anything. No sign, no cars, no lights. I almost left. My body knew something was wrong. My chest felt too tight, like I'd been breathing someone else's air. Then the front doors unlocked by themselves. Slowly, deliberately, as if something inside had been waiting for me. The warm air that spilled out felt wrong. Sweet, like wilted flowers and floor polish. A smell that seemed familiar in the way nightmares are. You've never smelled it in your life, but something deep inside reacts anyway. I stepped in. The lobby lights flickered on one by one. A banner hung above the front desk. Welcome night staff. But I was the only one there. A man stood near the welcome counter. At least, I thought he was a man. His uniform was perfect, crisp. His posture straight. His face molded into a smile, too still to be genuine. His eyes didn't blink. Not once. "You are Eli Marrow," he said. It wasn't a question. It was recognition. Like the way a building recognizes the weight of someone walking through it for the 100th time. "Yes," I said. "You will begin tonight." The tone was flat, not robotic, worse. Like someone imitating human speech, but not understanding why people use any tone at all. "You will follow procedures. You will follow all rules." "What rules?" I asked. He turned without answering. He led me down a hallway, so clean it reflected the lights like water. The floor gleamed. The lockers were spotless. The posters looked brand new, but the subjects were outdated. Drill instructions mentioning agencies that no longer exist, motivational quotes from principals nobody's heard of in decades. He stopped at a heavy metal door labeled 00, not 001, not anything, just 00. "This is your office," he said. "Read the binder. Begin when the bell rings." "What bell?" I asked. He didn't answer. He walked away, his footsteps too evenly spaced, too precisely timed, until he disappeared around a corner. And the moment he left my line of sight, I swear I heard something in the walls inhale. Inside room 00, the air felt warmer. A desk, cleaning supplies, a breaker map, a radio, a clocking machine, and a thick binder placed dead center like a holy text. The binder smelled faintly metallic and faintly floral, like blood mixed with potpourri. The rules inside were printed clearly. Rule 1. Do not begin rounds before the 9 p.m. bell. Rule 2. If you hear locker slam on the 2nd floor, do not investigate. Rule 3. If classroom 2B's light is on, turn it off from the breaker. Do not open the door. Rule 4. If you see a student, remember, there are no students. Rule 5. Camera 4 must remain off if it shows anyone. Rule 6. If the PA calls your name, do not respond. Rule 7. At 3:33 a.m., clear the floors. Something else has priority then. Rule 8. The boiler room must not be opened after 4 a.m. Rule 9. Clock out before dawn. If dawn reaches you inside, you stay. Rule 10. If you must run, do not look behind you. My throat tightened. The paper shook in my hands. I whispered a weak, broken little "oh no," because this wasn't a job. It was a test. Or a trap. Or both. I almost left. But then the bell rang. A deep, resonant bell that vibrated the floor through my boots. A bell nothing in the building could have physically produced. The lights flickered. The hallways brightened. And the school woke up. I felt it. The same way you feel a living thing open its eyes. I pushed my cart out of room 00, telling myself to keep moving. Movement felt like safety. Movement felt like control. Standing still made the air feel heavier. The first hour was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that presses down on you, like something holding its breath beneath the floor. Then, at 10:12 p.m., the lockers upstairs began slamming. Not random bangs. Not one or two. All of them. Bang, 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 bang. Dozens. Hundreds. In an awful, accelerating rhythm. I froze mid-step. My mop handle rattled against the bucket. Rule 2. Don't investigate. And yet, my ears strained for any sign of footsteps, of voices, a breath. Nothing. The slamming stopped as suddenly as it began. Then a single locker creaked open by itself, slow, drawn out, like someone testing the hinges with fingertips. That's when I whispered a soft, trembling, no. Not going up there, no. My voice cracked and I felt myself shrink inside my own skin. I pushed the cart away faster. At midnight, the PA crackled. Eli, hearing your own name said by something that shouldn't know it, that crawls under your ribs. The voice dragged the syllables like it was trying them on. Oh, 3-3. Come, downstairs. I slapped the PA off. My breath shook. My spine felt icy from neck to tailbone. Rule 6. Don't respond. The radio fizzed to life next. Not voices. Not static. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Close. Stop. I whispered to no one. Stop, stop. Then came the cameras. Camera 1. Something crawling under the cafeteria tables at unnatural speed. Camera 2. Gym lights swinging though no air moved. Camera 3. A shape leaning over the stairwell railings, upside down, smiling. Camera 4. I didn't even let the frame load all the way. The second I saw a silhouette standing in an empty classroom, I slammed the monitor off. I didn't breathe for a full 3 seconds. My lungs simply forgot. By 2:40 a.m., the temperature dropped. Every breath came out in white steam. The mop water froze into a thin shell. The metal smell grew thicker, flowers and iron, and the building made sounds. Not footsteps, not voices. Shifting, settling, adjusting itself, like the hallways were subtly rearranging behind my back. At 3:33 a.m., every light in the entire building died at once. Darkness swallowed the hallways. The radio died. The air went still. Then the footsteps began. Slow, heavy, deliberate, coming from every direction. My body reacted before my brain did. I bolted into classroom 1 and crouched behind the teacher's desk, shaking, arms wrapped around myself like a child. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. The doorknob twisted, upward, into a shape no human hand could make, like a metal grin forming slowly. The door breathed. I swear I heard would expand, as if something leaned its full weight against it. Then a voice slid through the wall. Janitor. I clamped both hands over my mouth. My heartbeat screamed in my ears. I see you. My eyes filled with tears. They streamed silently down my face. My breath came in shallow, pathetic whimpers I tried to choke back. The thing outside sniffed at the bottom of the door. Slow, long wet, learning me. After a minute that felt like an hour, it walked away. The lights flickered back on. I didn't move for almost 60 seconds. I couldn't. When I finally stepped into the hallway again, the floor felt warm, like something had just passed through. At 4:08 a.m., I made the mistake of passing the boiler room. The door was open 2 inches. Heat poured out in rhythmic pulses like a beating heart. Pipes bent, groaned, flexed in shapes metal shouldn't move. And then, through the roar of the furnace, I heard it, a low whisper, not words, just hunger-made sound. I ran so fast my knees almost buckled. Rule 10, don't look behind you, burned into my brain. At 5:58 a.m., I stumbled back into room 00, hands shaking too violently to clock out. I was crying without realizing it, each breath sharp and stuttering. At 6 a.m., the greeter appeared behind me. You performed adequately, he said. You will return. I quit, I whispered. You will return, he repeated, smile widening. The school accepts you. It does not easily let go of what it notices. I'm not going back. You already are back. I fled. I drove to a motel miles away. I hid for days. Then, tonight, someone knocked on my door. No footsteps. No voice. Just a single paper slipped under the frame. Your shift begins at 9 p.m. You are already late. When I lifted my eyes toward the bathroom mirror, I didn't see the bathroom. I saw a hallway. The school hallway. Bright, awake, breathing. The walls stretched toward me like arms. And now the bell is starting to ring. The motel door isn't a door anymore. It's an entrance. A mouth. And something is walking toward me from the other end of the hall. I think the school found a way in. I think it learned how to move. I don't remember opening the motel door. I don't remember choosing to step toward the hallway that shouldn't exist. All I remember is the sound. Not the bell. Not footsteps. A breath. Slow, deliberate, warm, like something inhaling me before I even reached the threshold. The motel walls had already warped into long, perfect rows of lockers. The carpet dissolved into linoleum. The air turned warm and heavy with that familiar scent. Flowers left too long in a sick room. My heartbeat thudded hard enough to hurt. I backed away, whispering, "No, please, no, not again, not tonight." But the door behind me was gone. A flat wall now. Painted beige. No handle. No escape. I wasn't in a motel anymore. I was inside the school again. And the school was awake. The hall lights flickered on in sequence, like vertebrae in a massive spine. My shadow stretched unnaturally long ahead of me, bending at angles I knew my body couldn't make. I swallowed a weak little, oh, God. Because fear does that. It makes you laugh in pathetic, broken bursts. The bell rang. Deep. Resonant. So close the metal in my teeth buzzed. The shift had begun. I looked down and realized I still had the motel key clenched in my palm. It was warm. Too warm. As if it had been held by something else before I noticed it. Then the lights behind me shut off. Instantly. A clean, deliberate swipe of blackness. Only the hallway ahead remained lit. When a place controls light like that, you learn something important. It knows where it wants you, and it wants you moving. So I moved. The first hallway was wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. The lockers seemed taller. The ceiling seemed lower. The floor tile pattern didn't match the one from 2 nights ago. It felt like the building had rearranged itself in my absence, like a creature stretching its body differently based on hunger. My footsteps echoed weirdly, too loud, too flat, as if the space wasn't reflecting the sound, but absorbing it. Halfway down the hall, I passed a classroom door with a paper sign taped to it. Substitute needed. The paper was pristine, white, fresh, but the tape holding it there was old, yellowed, crumbling at the edges. I didn't touch it. I didn't even breathe near it, because the paper fluttered and there was no breeze. Something inside the classroom brushed against the blinds. They swayed in a long, slow arc, deliberate, practiced. I kept walking, chest tight, heartbeat skipping like a scratched record. At the turn of the next hallway, the floor dipped. A subtle slope, just enough to make me stumble. This hadn't been here before. The building was reconfiguring itself. Every rule, every safe path, every familiar corridor was now unreliable. I hurried forward, and the radio on my hip crackled to life. I froze. A faint voice came through, small, delicate. Hello. A child. A little boy by the sound of it. Maybe 7, 8 years old. My throat closed. Rule 4 screamed through my head like a siren. There are no students. Help, the child whispered. I'm lost. My hand trembled on the radio. The voice was so gentle, so scared, that something primal inside me, some leftover instinct that remembered being human, reacted. I can't, I whispered, voice cracking. I can't answer. I'm sorry. The voice shifted instantly. Not a child anymore. Not even close. It dropped into a deep, scraping bass that vibrated inside my ribs. Janitor. Every letter was a claw. The radio fried with a pop and went dead. I stumbled back, hands shaking violently. My knees weakened so badly I had to grip the wall just to stay upright. That's when I noticed the lockers to my left. All of them slightly ajar. Just slightly. Not open. Not closed. As if waiting. As if listening. I forced myself to move. The hallway bent unexpectedly into a stairwell. It hadn't been here last night. This staircase was narrower, darker, railings rusted like old bone. A sign hung crooked over the first step. Second floor closed for repairs. The lettering looked handwritten in red marker, but the strokes were too thick, too uneven, too smeared. I knew it wasn't marker. Still, staying in the hall felt worse. So I took a step. The stairwell groaned under my weight. The second step bent downward unnaturally, like something underneath had shifted to accommodate me. A warm gust of air brushed my ankle. From below, as if something was waiting on the other side of the metal. I climbed faster. Third step, fourth, each one bending. On the sixth step, the lights cut out. Pitch black. Not dim, not shadowed. Black. Total sensory deprivation. Then a sound drifted up the stairwell. Click, click, click. Not footsteps. Fingernails. Climbing after me. Scratching the metal rhythmically, savoring each step. My breathing turned rapid and ugly. I rushed upward blindly, palms scraping the wall, toes catching on the edges of each step. Whatever was below me was moving faster, the clicks increasing in speed. Click, 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 click. I lunged upward, nearly throwing myself through the door at the top of the stairs. It slammed shut behind me. Hard. Something hit the other side a split second later. A fist, or a head, or something harder. I backed away from the door and found myself in a hallway I didn't recognize at all. This wasn't the second floor. This wasn't any floor I'd cleaned before. This corridor was wrong. The walls were too smooth, the lights too dim, and space too far apart. And the air was hot, like standing near an oven vent. A faint hum echoed through the hall, low and constant, vibrating through my bones. I took one step forward. The hum deepened. I took another. The lights overhead flickered. A door ahead of me creaked open an inch. Just an inch. Enough to see that the room inside was utterly dark. Enough to hear breathing inside. Long, slow breaths, inhaling with a wet undertone. I whispered, "No, not this room. Not this one." Even though I'd never seen it before. That's when I noticed the plaque beside the door. Math department. Room 2B. My blood ran cold. Rule 3. If classroom 2B's light is on, turn it off from the breaker. Do not open the door. But the light wasn't on, which meant the room was breaking its own rule. The door pushed open a little wider. A long, pale hand reached out from the dark, fingers too thin, too long, joints bending in wrong places. It hovered inches from the floor, palm down, feeling around. Searching. The nails dragged lightly across the tile. Soft, slow. Testing. My breath hitched. My body refused to move. The hand pressed against the floor like it was preparing to crawl out. I snapped out of it and sprinted down the hall, nearly slipping on polished tile as I rounded a corner. I didn't know this part of the building. It felt deeper, older. The walls were darker brick, rough, uneven, like they'd been built by hand long before the rest of the school existed. Pipes ran exposed overhead, sweating condensation that dripped onto the floor in slow, steady beats. Drip, drip, drip. The sound echoed, too loudly, as if the pipes were hollow tunnels extending further than they should. At the end of the hallway was another sign. Boiler room. My stomach dropped. Rule 8. Never enter after 4 a.m. I checked my watch. 3:57 a.m. Too close. Way too close. The boiler room door was cracked open. Inside, orange light pulsed in slow, rhythmic waves. Like breathing. I stepped back. The floor vibrated. A deep metallic groan rolled through the hallway. Like the entire furnace shifted its position. Then a sound crawled out. A low, guttural whisper that scraped like burning coal. Join me. Smoke curled out from the boiler room gap. Except it wasn't smoke. It moved wrong. Too heavy. Too intentional. Like fingers. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep myself from sobbing out loud. A pathetic little choking cry still escaped. "Oh, no, no." And the whisper inside the boiler room paused. It had hurt me. The pipes overhead trembled violently, rattling like bones struck with a hammer. The whisper deepened. Hungrier. Janitor. I heard shift. Something large dragging itself toward the door. That was enough. I ran with everything I had. The school reacted. Lights ahead shut off. Lights behind flared bright. The floor buckled beneath me like something pushing upward from below. The building was trying to hurt me. trying to force me somewhere. I sprinted around a corner and collided with something solid, human-shaped. I screamed. My body jerked backward so fast I fell against the wall. The figure stood perfectly still in the dim hallway. Tall, uniformed, smiling. The greeter, except his smile was wider now. Too wide, stretching ear to ear like skin pulled taut by hooks. "You have returned to your shift," he said. His voice had changed, layered, like 2 or 3 tones speaking together through one mouth. "You will continue your duties." "I don't want this," I shouted, shaking so violently I could barely stand. "Please, let me go. Just let me go." The greeter tilted his head. "The school does not release what it chooses." His neck bent a little too far. "You follow rules well. It approves." "I don't want its approval." "Then you should not have answered its call." "I didn't." "You came," he said simply. "Your presence is consent." My vision blurred with tears. I wiped them away with the back of my sleeve, but they kept coming faster. "Your shift," he whispered, "is not over." Then, he stepped aside, revealing the hallway behind him. A hallway that should not exist. Longer than any building hallway could be. Locker rows stretching into darkness. Lights flickering endlessly down its length. A distant shape walking toward us. Slow, heavy, purposeful. The greeter leaned close to my ear. "Your replacement never arrived." His breath was warm. Too warm. "So the school made one." I whispered, trembling uncontrollably. "It made one what?" He smiled that impossible smile. "A version of you." The figure down the hall stepped into the light. I stopped breathing. My legs gave out, because I saw my own face, my own uniform, my own posture, my own expression twisted into something hollow and hungry and wrong. It lifted a hand, not waving, reaching, claiming. I stumbled backward, choking out a broken, "No, no, no, no," while my vision spiraled into panic. The greeter whispered, "You are late. Report to yourself." The other me opened its mouth, and the bell rang. The bell's echo was still ringing when the other me stepped fully into the light. It didn't blink. It didn't breathe. It didn't even walk right. It flowed like its bones weren't bones, but something poured into a shape that only vaguely resembled mine. I backed away, whispering, "No, no, you're not me. You're not me." My throat closed around the words, cracking into a weak, broken whine. The duplicate tilted its head, studying me with my own face. Then it smiled. My smile, but stretched too wide, too eager, like it had been practicing in a mirror made of skin instead of glass. The greeter stepped aside with a slow, mechanical gesture. "Report to your replacement," he said. The words made my stomach cave in. Report. Like I was an employee. Like this thing was my supervisor. Or worse, my successor. I am not. I tried to say more, but my voice shattered into a small, pathetic awe. "Please don't, please." The duplicate moved. One step. Its foot hit the floor with a soft, wet sound, like it had been walking through a place where walls breathed. That was enough. My body took over. I ran. The hallway lights immediately reacted. The row ahead of me shut off. The row behind flared brighter. The school was hurting me, directing me, trying to force me where it wanted me. I yanked open a classroom door at random and slammed it shut behind me. My breath came in violent bursts, my pulse bruising my ribs. Inside the room, rows of desks, a chalkboard with half-erased equations, a single chair facing the corner. Normal. Too normal. The kind of normal that feels staged. I backed away slowly, because something was wrong with the chalkboard. The equations began to erase themselves. Not all at once. One line at a time. Each stroke wiping away in slow, steady movements like invisible fingers brushing the chalk clean. I stood frozen. Then new words appeared in tall white strokes. "Run, but not that way." My knees buckled. What do you want from me?" The chalk paused, then wrote a single line. "Turn around." I shook my head violently. No, I'm not." The chalk snapped in half. A loud, sharp crack. I turned on instinct. The duplicate stood in the doorway, filling the frame perfectly. Not rushing, not lunging, just present, like it had always been there. Its smile widened. I dove through the opposite door, the emergency exit, and crashed into a stairwell filled with darkness. I didn't think. I just ran. My boots slammed against the metal steps, each clang ricocheting up the stairwell like a scream. Above me, lights flickering. Below me, something climbing fast. A sound like wet rope dragged over metal. I sprinted upward. The railing burned hot under my palm. The building felt feverish, overheated from its own shifting anatomy. I burst through the third-floor landing door and froze. This wasn't a third floor. This was something else. The hallway was enormous. Too long, too tall, like a cathedral made from school architecture. Lockers climbed the walls 3 stories high. Rows and rows of them, stacked like honeycomb. Some vibrated faintly, rattling as if something inside was testing the hinges. A low moaning drifted through the space. Wind. No, the breath of the building. I stepped forward and the floor rippled under my foot like a stretched drum skin. Oh God. Ha no, what is this? A loud bang echoed behind me. I spun. The duplicate was climbing out of the stairwell. Not walking, climbing. Hands gripping the door frame as if pulling its entire body up a narrow throat. Its joints popped. Its arms stretched. Its head tilted at an impossible angle as it stared at me upside down. Then it dropped onto the hallway floor and began moving toward me in a slow, hungry crawl. I ran again. This new hall seemed endless. Every turn led to another turn. Every doorway looped into another hallway. The building was rearranging itself as I moved, trying to trap me, trying to keep me. I tried every door I passed, yanking the handles, pounding my fist against the frames. Locked, locked, locked. One door opened, into a storage closet barely big enough for a person. I stepped back to run, but the closet door pulled itself wider. A whisper slipped out from the darkness inside. Hide. I froze. The voice was small, terrified, human. My breath hitched. Please, it whispered again. It's coming. The duplicate's footsteps echoed behind me. Soft, deliberate, getting closer. I stared at the closet. Could I fit? Yes. Could something else already be inside? Probably. Would hiding buy me time? Maybe. The footsteps grew louder, slower, savoring each step. I forced my shaking legs to move and slid into the closet. The door closed silently behind me. Pitch black. I tried to regulate my breathing, but each inhale came out as a trembling little cry. Something touched my hand. I jerked violently, slamming into shelves. Don't move, the whisper said. Don't make a sound. My heart hammered painfully. The footsteps stopped outside the closet door. Then, a single knock. Light. Testing. I cover my mouth. Another knock. And a third knock. But this one lower on the door. Chest level. As if the duplicate pressed its forehead against the wood. Then it inhaled. A long, deep sniff. Like it was smelling through the crack. My tears streamed hot down my face. It whispered my name through the door in a warped, hollow mimic of my voice. Eli, let's work together. The person beside me trembled so hard, I felt vibrations through the closet floor. The duplicate placed its palm flat against the door. Boards creaked under its weight. I wanted to scream. I bit my knuckles instead. After an eternity, it walked away. I exhaled sharply. Too sharply. Too loud. The voice beside me gasped in horror. You shouldn't have done that. The lights flickered on inside the closet. I saw the person standing next to me. A man wearing an old janitor uniform. Rusty name tag. Hollow eyes. Skin gray and sagging like clay left in the sun. He looked at me with shaking terror. You're not supposed to be here, he whispered. I hid. I hid too long. Now the school won't let me leave. I staggered back, hitting the wall. Who are you? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His face. It looked like mine. Older. Thinner. Dried out. Forgotten. You'll become this too, he whispered. A leftover. A misfiled employee. A mistake the school hasn't decided what to do with yet. My breath turned weak. Shallow. Run, he said, before it finishes replacing you. I grabbed the closet door and yanked it open. The hallway outside was different again. Shorter. Dimmer. A straight shot to an exit sign, glowing red at the end. An actual exit. A real exit. I sprinted. My legs burned. My lungs screamed. The building reacted instantly. Lockers slammed open. Doors snapped shut. Lights flickered violently. The exit sign dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. The floor buckled behind me like something huge was crawling beneath it. The double Eli let out a wail from somewhere in the halls. A deep, hungry howl that vibrated the ceiling tiles. I didn't look back. Rule 10 burned in my skull. I hit the exit door so hard it burst open. Cold air, night sky, parking lot. I staggered 2 steps into the lot, breathing raggedly, tears blurring everything. I made it. I made it. Ha ha, oh God, oh God. Then the bell rang. Loud. Too loud. It echoed across the asphalt like a command. The parking lot lights flickered. The world bent. And the school doors behind me opened by themselves. The greeter stepped out, smiling too wide. You forgot to clock out. Behind him, in the darkness of the doorway, a silhouette. My silhouette. The duplicate lifted a hand, welcoming, claiming, and the ground beneath my feet softened, tile patterns blooming across the asphalt like infection. The school was spreading outward, reaching for me, pulling me back in. I tried to run, but the parking lot shifted under me, becoming floor, becoming hallway, becoming interior. The world twisted, and when my vision cleared, I was inside again, standing at the front desk. The greeter held out the punch card. Let us try this again. I whispered, voice broken. No, no, please. He took my wrist, guided my hand, stamped the time card. 6:01 a.m. late. The bell rang again, and somewhere deeper in the building, my duplicate answered it. I woke with the taste of metal in my mouth and somebody else's laugh. My laugh stuck in my throat like a cough. The greeter's stamp burned under my skin. That little rectangle of ink felt like an anchor tied to a leg. The lobby was the lobby, and it wasn't. Fluorescent lights hummed in a nervous key. The front desk was paper-thin quiet. My hands smelled of toner and old coins. I rubbed my wrist where the time card had been and felt nothing but heat and a bruise of shame. You don't think about being a number until you are one. You never notice the small bureaucracy of your life until it slams a rule on you and calls it law. Clocking out is the final release, the greeter had said, his voice syrupy with the wrong kind of comfort. No stamp, no leaving. I had heard it then and not believed it. I believed it now with the hardness of a man who has been slammed by a machine. I pushed from the desk, and the greeter was there before I could take 3 steps. He didn't move so much as be present, a place the building projected like a face on a screen. Your replacement is learning, he said. It will need instruction. You will assist. I stared at him. My throat kept trying to make the sound no, and nothing came out right. The greeter's smile was a slow-motion creak. Assist how? I asked. My voice was small. I could hear the echoes in the tile, like coins rolling down a drain. He pointed, not with a hand. He gestured with the set of his shoulders, absurdly polite. Records, he said. All staff must file the departing in the registry. Registry. The word was paper and dust and museum glass. His voice painted it into being. My feet moved before my brain agreed. The building had directions now. A current. I went with it because refusing felt like holding back a river with 2 hands. The corridor we walked didn't exist last night, or I'd never seen it. Tall cabinets lined one wall, black metal with label slots full of small white cards. The air smelled like dusted vellum and something older, like a ledger that had learned to breathe. We entered a room that could have been an archive if archives were alive. Rows of drawers climbed to the ceiling. Each label was a name, hundreds of them. I recognized none at first. Then I did. Old janitors, former teachers, night supervisors, names with dates, tiny stamps next to some, little folded cards tucked in corners, as if someone had left notes for ghosts. At the far end was a board, a court plate covered in time cards pinned like butterflies. Each card a rectangle of ink, a testimony of arrival and departure. Some had departures, most did not. The ones without departures had little curls of gray dust collecting at the corners, leftovers. They moved in the air like trapped moths. File the departing, the greeter repeated. Complete their record. Close the file. Accept the replacement. He handed me a card. Blank on one side, blank on both. Really, the kind of blank that means opportunity or doom, depending on who is holding it. Sign, he said. I stared at the card, and then at the corkboard where other cards slotted. Each card had a name, a time, a note scribbled in a tiny hand sometimes. Help. Left in room 2B. Do not open. Return broken. Little human panics, preserved like pressed flowers. Across from the corkboard, a figure hunched behind a rolling cart of loose papers. Gray uniform, gray eyes, The leftover from the closet. He looked up, and his gaze hit mine like a mirror. He was Eli and not Eli at once. My jawline, my nose, the slight scar at the corner of my thumb where a mop handle had once slipped. But his skin hung like cloth in a wind, and his eyes were pocked with the reflection of fluorescent lights. The living version of an old ID. "You don't have to," he said quietly, as if he were revealing a small, awful trick. "You can jam the card. You can refuse the stamp. But they loop. They loop you until you stop fighting." "Loop me?" I asked. My voice sounded like a coin rolling in a long pipe. He nodded. "The registry keeps a ledger. The stamp isn't bureaucratic. It's binding. You stamp out, you leave. You miss it, they file you into the system. Time moves differently in the files. You get quiet. You forget to go home." I thought of my apartment, my empty dishes, the box of things my ex had left. I thought of a life with corners like a safe place that suddenly had a lid. "How do I stop it?" I asked. The question felt ridiculous next to the cabinets. How to stop a building with a mouth. He smiled, a thin gravel of a thing. "You don't. Not fully. You get clever." "Clever how?" He reached for a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside, a stack of old time cards with ink on brown, edges frayed. But tucked between them was a card with a hole burned through it. A single charred ring where a stamp had burned away the paper. "You burn the evidence," he said. "You make it look like you never were. But burning the card burns the memory. They will patch that wound with someone else's face. You might escape them, or you might leave a hollow where you were and never be able to get back." The words were an ultimatum without choice. I thought of ripping the car to shreds. I thought of throwing it into the dumpster in the parking lot. I thought of soaking it in gasoline and lighting a match. Each idea offered a different trade. Freedom, annihilation, replacement. Each trade had teeth. "You can also bring a replacement," he said. "If you have someone to trade, they take the anchor and you go. The building likes tidy trades." My stomach turned. Tomorrow's moral calculus. Life for life. I wasn't a saint. I wasn't a hero. I wanted out, not a ledger of corpses. The leftover's mouth thinned again. "A trick," he said. "A loophole. A way to slip the stamp without binding yourself." His fingers found a small key under the card. "Breaker room," he said. "If you flip the master, the registry pauses. Temporary pause. Do that, and you can file your own exit." My hope was a lantern in a storm. I grabbed it. "How do I get there?" He tapped the corkboard. A faint path glowed in the pattern of scratches, like a map. "Through the boiler throat. Past 3B. Don't look at the mirrors." "Mirrors?" I asked. "They copy you," he said. "You look and you lose something. You must not look." I stuffed the blank card into my pocket. The greeter watched with his placid half-smile. The leftover watched with the flat stare of someone who had been waiting too long. I had a plan because the alternative was to sit and become frame dust. I moved through the archive like a thief in a museum. The cabinets hummed. Names watched. I passed a drawer labeled Maria Weiss, 1997 to 2001. Her card had been folded into a small star. Someone had penciled in a child's name on the back. The corridor reconfigured itself, as if we had reached a part where walls were soft. Doors appeared where there hadn't been doors. A stairwell frowned into a tunnel and spit me into a boiler hallway that smelled of warm metal and old bread. The boiler room door was bolted from the inside. Steam breathed around the edges. Under the hum was a low note that felt like teeth grinding. I remembered Rule 8. Never enter after 4 a.m. It was 5:30, something by my watch. Time was a smear now. The education of a man who had believed in clocks dissolved into the knowledge of a man who had learned they were suggestions. I slid my card out and looked at it. Blank. Clean. The greeter's stamp had been the molecule that attached me. It showed as ink in my chest. The card was paper, but the idea of it was heavier than lead. At the boiler door, someone knocked from the other side. Not the greeter. Not a duplicate. A small tap, tentative as a child. "You have to go in," my leftover self had said. "You have to make it break." I pushed the door. Steam hit me like a fist. The room was larger than I'd imagined. A cathedral of pipes and valves and sweating metal. The center hummed with a furnace, so hot it bent the air. In one corner, a panel blinked red and a label read registry power. Master breaker. The key fit the lock like a mouth finding a tongue. I turned it. For a second, nothing. Then the boilers hiccuped. The building shuddered. The hum dropped a note. The lights around the archive went dim for a breath, then steadied. I ran. The idea was to get to the corkboard, jam a card into the slot for my name, and, while the registry hiccuped, stamp out and run. Simple, wild, stupid. I moved like a man on a single mission. Into the corridor, past the classroom that had burned the chalk, past lockers that breathed. The duplicate shadow moved in a different corridor now, everywhere and nowhere. But the building had hiccuped and its rhythm was off. That's when I saw it. A door open, just a crack, and inside, a classroom full of mirrors. Wall to wall, desks arranged to face them. Faces reflected in rows like codices of nightmares. Each mirror held a face with the wrong edges. Some were older, some were blank. Some had a second pupil in the center of the forehead. I kept my head down, but a mirror obliged me with a sliver of reflection. For a second, I saw more than my face. I saw small fragments of other nights. My wife's laugh caught like a broken record, the exhale of a child that had never been mine. A sound like rejoicing or mourning rose behind the glass. I felt something snag inside me. A sliver of memory came loose and tried to float out. I clapped a hand to my mouth and swallowed it back like a pill. The greeter's voice slid down the hall. "You may pass," he said softly, "but the mirrors keep score." I didn't look again. The panel seemed to breathe as I went. When the registry hiccuped, the mirrors trembled, as if the building had been holding its breath and had just let out a shiver. At the corkboard, hands shaking, I slid my card into a slot labeled Marrow, Eli, 2025. I almost fumbled the pin. My fingers were clumsy. The ink inside the station blazed like an old sun. For one stolen breath, it felt like freedom was a real thing. I took the stamp in my hand. The grating metal felt like comfort and threat both. I pressed the stamp down. The bell rang. The sound hit like a fist. The greeter's face was closer over my shoulder than I'd expected. The duplicate's echo answered somewhere deeper in the building. And then the corkboard, my board, erased itself. Where my card had once been, a white hole sat like a wound. The pin sank into emptiness. Not stamped, not filed, not gone, just gone. Something had intervened. A floor below the registry. Some hidden claw had reached up and pulled the file out of the slot before it could anchor. I heard the leftover behind me choke, a wet sound. Papers on the corkboard fluttered like trapped birds. Names rearranged themselves. The greeter's smile didn't move, but his eyes pinched in a way I had never seen. "Clever," he said softly. "The breaker gave you a second." "Then why?" I started. "You misunderstood," he said. "The pause is not a blank. It is a mirror. When you slow the registry, it looks back." The duplicate's footsteps were a drumbeat down the corridor. I shoved my empty card into my pocket and ran. I ran because the building still wanted me to run. I ran because the greeter's voice had gone soft like velvet and velvet smothers. I barreled through halls that bent like elbows. I dug through doorways that had no doors. The duplicates multiplied now, brief flashes of Eli where there had been corners. Each time I saw one, a memory I had clung to slipped away like lint from a sweater. A face would vanish from a family photo in my head. A restaurant name, a color of a plate, little things, the kind of things that make up a life. I thought of burning the card. I thought of leaving it whole. I thought of handing it to someone else. None of it felt like a solution. They were all compromises with a glacier, slow and inevitable. At the end of the hall, I had one clear choice, one stupid, human thing left. The parking lot door, the real way out I had fought for in the beginning. I shoved it. Cold air hit my face like truth. The parking lot looked normal for a breath, cars, neon signs across the street, a sky smeared with city light. The ticket machine blinked. A trash can overflowed. Then a grating sound rose from the asphalt beneath my boots like a throat clearing. Tiles bloomed. Locker seams blossomed across the pavement. The edge of the lot peeled back into linoleum, and then metal, and then tile. The world changed its skin. The greeter stood at the threshold behind me, and the duplicate stood before him, waiting like a patient animal. "You can run," the greeter said, "but running becomes returning." The choice hit like cold milk. I could flee now and keep the pieces of myself that were left, or I could stay and fight with whatever teeth the school used to keep files closed. I tasted burn in my mouth. My palms were sticky with sweat. I stepped forward, not into the parking lot, not back in the hall. I stepped into the doorway between them, and felt the world bend. The greeter's hand closed on my elbow with the weight of a ledger. "You have until sunrise," he said. "After that, the registry reclaims what you have loosened." Sunrise. The thing I had been told to avoid. The dawn that would anchor everything. The point where leaving could become permanent. I pulled my arm free. "I'll find another way," I said. My voice was small but sharp. "I'm not being filed." "You already are," he said. The duplicate smiled. My smile. But something was wrong behind it, like a hinge with a broken tooth. "You will teach it," the greeter said, "until it learns your hands, your eyes, until the registry accepts it, which it will." He released me. I had until sunrise. The bell inside me had started timer. I ran. I ran because the building gave me no time to be brave and polite. I ran like a thief who had forgotten why he stole. The night was moving faster than my legs could hold. The building reoriented. The duplicates multiplied. The registry breathed like a sleeping animal with too many teeth. And in the back of my mind, where memory still lived raw and tender, a small image trembled. My ex-wife's laugh at a diner. A chipped coffee mug. My name said by a voice that loved me once. I would not lose that. I promised myself. I would not let the school turn him into a corridor and call it mercy. But promises are thin things in rooms that change the plan of the world. The greeter watched as I disappeared down the stretch of hall. The bell pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat measured in deep space. I had until sunrise, and the school had all night. I don't remember pushing through the doorway. I don't remember choosing a direction. All I remember is running. Running because the greeter had given me a deadline. Running because sunrise felt like an execution. Running because something inside my ribcage whispered that if I stayed still for even one heartbeat, the school would write me into its ledger like a misfiled invoice. The hallways stretched and tightened around me like veins pumping a foreign pulse. I clung to one thought. I need my card. I need to destroy my record. I need to disappear from the system. Burn the card, the leftover had said. But burning the card burns the memory. I didn't care. I'd rather forget everything than live inside tile and metal. My footsteps slapped the floor too loudly. Every slam echoed like a signal flare. Somewhere behind me, the duplicate answered it. Footsteps syncing with mine. Soft, eager, wrong. The greeter's voice floated down the hall like warm static. Sunrise approaches. Eli, make your choice. I did. I chose to steal myself back. The registry room wasn't where I left it. Of course it wasn't. The school had rearranged itself into a loop of bruised walls and rotating corridors. But I followed the faint scent I remembered. The dusty vellum, the old ledger smell. It thickened the farther I ran. Good. The building hated that smell. The registry wasn't alive the way the rest was. It was something older. Something the school tolerated but didn't fully control. Maybe that was the loophole. Down one corridor, the walls thinned into chalk dust mist. Down another, the floor warmed under my feet like heated breath. And then I saw it. A single cabinet, drawer half open. White cards fluttering out like frantic moths. I sprinted toward it. The registry room had cracked wider, like the school didn't want it to fully collapse before sunrise. It needed it functional long enough to trap me. Inside, the cabinets loomed taller than before. Names rearranged themselves across the labels like crawling insects. The leftover janitor sat slumped at his cart, head bowed, as though listening to a hum only he could hear. He lifted his face when I entered. His eyes were emptier. Too late, he whispered. The breaker by you seconds, not minutes. Not this close to dawn. There has to be time. I gasped. My lungs burned like I'd inhaled steam. Where's my card? Where's my file? He pointed with slow, trembling fingers. If the system removed it, it's in reclamation. What the hell is reclamation? He smiled thinly. The place where things go when the building doesn't know whether to keep them or kill them. My stomach turned cold. I crossed to the corkboard. The empty white slot where my card should have been pulsed faintly like a raw nerve. Where is reclamation? I asked. Under everything, the leftovers said. The belly. The real archive. How do I get there? His voice cracked with a trembling whimper. You don't. I have to. He shut his eyes as if the thought hurt. The school eats its waste, he whispered. Reclamation is the throat. The air conditioning vents groaned overhead and blew out a slow plume of hot air. A direction. A warning. Or both. I heard the greeter's voice echo again. Time dwindles. I grabbed a metal ruler from the leftovers cart, the only thing that could pass for a weapon, and ran. The path to reclamation wasn't marked. It revealed itself. The floor tile shifted under me into a slope. Lockers thinned into concrete. Lights flickered into a deeper red. And the smell. God, the smell. Rot mixed with ink. Metal mixed with mildew. A sweet, warm scent like flowers left on a grave in midsummer. I cover my mouth, gagging. The hallway pitched downward sharply. The slope became stairs. The stairs became a ramp made from something slick and smooth, not tile. I didn't want to know what it was. At the bottom of the ramp was a massive grate with a faint orange glow beneath it, like a furnace exhaling embers. Reclamation chute. Staff only the sign above read. My pulse accelerated. This was it. My file was somewhere down there. Maybe intact. Maybe already being erased. I grabbed the grate and pulled. It screeched like metal screaming. The duplicate's voice echoed faintly from far above, mimicking my panic. Eli. Eli. I yanked harder. The grate snapped open. Heat surged upward like a living thing, wrapping around my neck and waist as if inviting me in. I crawled through. The reclamation chamber was not a room. It was a throat. The floor was ribbed metal, sloped downward into a massive pit of orange glow. Stacks of unfiled cards drifted in the hot airflow, swirling like ash. Some were half-burned. Some were partially stamped. Some were written in handwriting I recognized, the scrawl of desperate staff before me. The deeper I climbed, the hotter it got. My skin prickled. My shirt stuck to my spine. My breath came in short, choking bursts. I reached a ledge where cards collected in piles. They moved. Some slid slowly toward the pit, pulled by an unseen suction. Others fluttered like birds with broken wings, as if choosing between destruction and preservation. And then I saw it. My card. Blank. Unstamped. Perfectly white. Hovering at the lip of the pit. No. The word tore out of me raw and high. More like a cry than speech. I sprinted. The heat blistered my skin. The air thickened, resisting me like syrup. The metal underfoot groaned. The card drifted forward an inch. I lunged, and something grabbed my ankle. Not a hand. Not fingers. Something smoother. Warmer. A tendril of building material that had softened into living tissue. The school. The building was holding me. It tugged me backward toward a deeper part of the chamber. My knees skidded on the ribbed metal. A scream tore out of my throat. A pitiful, shrill, broken awe. Please. Not now. Not now. The tendril tightened. The pit glowed brighter. I clawed at the floor until my fingertips bled. My car drifted closer to the orange void. No. No. I wasn't going to lose myself to paperwork and fire. I stabbed the metal ruler downward into the tendril. A shriek filled the chamber. Not human. Not mechanical. A raw, ancient shriek that made my teeth vibrate. The tendril recoiled. I launched forward, snatching my card just as it tipped into the heat. Pain shot through my hand instantly. The edge burned my palm, fusing itself to my skin for half a second before I ripped it free. I staggered back, gripping the card against my chest, panting. I had it. I had myself back. Now I had to destroy it. The heat from the pit made destroying the card easy. Too easy. But the leftovers warning echoed in my mind. Burning the card burns the memory. My memories flickered in my mind like weak bulbs. My ex-wife pouring coffee. The cheap rug in our apartment. The night we laughed over nothing. The way she pronounced my name. I held the card over the pit. If I burned it, maybe the school would lose hold of me. Maybe I'd be free. Maybe I'd walk away with half my past. Or none. I lower my hand. The card edge caught flame instantly. Bright. Blue. Hungry. A thin thread of smoke curled upward, and I felt something slip inside me. A memory peeling loose. A small one. The color of my first car. Gone. A second flicker. The smell of my father's jacket. Gone. I cried out weakly. A cracked, trembling sob. No, please stop. But the card kept burning, until a voice behind me spoke. That won't free you. I turned. The duplicate stood at the entrance of the throat, staring down at me with my eyes. Except now they glowed faintly orange, reflecting the pit. My burned card sizzled in my hand. The duplicate stepped forward. For freedom, it whispered. You must burn me. I froze. What? You are the original, it said. I'm the anchor the school made for you. Destroy me, and your file collapses. The registry cannot keep two without choosing. It stepped closer, and it always chooses the one who stands. The implication hit me like a punch. If I killed it, if I burned it, if I erased the school's copy, I could take back my identity. But the duplicate smiled with my mouth. You were never meant to leave, it said softly. I was meant to replace you. But now, it looked down at the burning card in my hand. We are both unfiled. A faint tremor shook the building. Sunrise was close. The ledger wanted order. It would not tolerate a double. The duplicate stretched out its hand to me. Choose, it said. Me or you. I stepped backward toward the pit. The heat roared. The chamber groaned. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. The duplicate's face twisted into a hungry grin. Don't run, it whispered. You'll only delay what's already written. I held up the last burning corner of my card, and I realized I didn't have to burn myself. I didn't have to burn him. Not entirely. I just had to burn the part the registry needed. His face. His hands. His identity. I lunged. The duplicate lunged too. We collided violently, rolling across the hot metal floor. His fingers wrapped around my throat. My burned hand slapped against his cheek. Flame licked his skin. He screamed, a distorted, gargled version of my voice. His face blistered instantly. Melted. Changed. Identity unraveling. He clawed at his own features as they dripped like wax. Stop! 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 He shrieked in a warped imitation of my panic. I pushed him hard toward the pit. His hands flailed. His voice cracked. He slid toward the orange light and caught the ledge with one melting hand. He looked up at me, face sagging, eyes uneven and liquid. Please don't. I'm you. I'm you. No. I gasped, tears blurring my vision, breath shaking. You're what the school wanted me to be. His grip slipped. He fell into the pit. The chamber roared. The building shuddered. Then, silence. My card, burned to a charred stub, fluttered from my fingers and dissolved into ash. I felt something loosen in my chest, like a tether snapping, like a stamp unwriting itself. I was unfiled, unbound, but not free, because far above the reclamation chamber, somewhere in the breathing hallways of the school, a bell began to ring. Sunrise, and the greeter's voice descended like judgment. Eli, you broke the order. Now the building must correct you. The floor buckled. The walls pulsed. The throat began to shift upward, pushing me out, forcing me toward something waiting above. And I realized I hadn't escaped. I'd started a war. The building spat me out of the reclamation chamber like I was a bone it couldn't chew. I crashed on a cold tile, sliding across it until my shoulder hit a wall hard enough to knock breath from my lungs. The metal ruler clattered away somewhere down the hall. The walls throbbed once, a slow, deep pulse, like a creature licking its wounds. Then the greeter's voice unfurled through the intercom system, warm and venom-smooth. You have destabilized the registry, Eli. The building must correct the anomaly. My vision blurred. My skin was hot from the reclamation pit, like I'd stood too close to a blast furnace. My hand shook. My breath trembled in soft, pathetic gasps. Please, I whispered. Not to him, not even to the school, to myself. The greeter stepped out of a supply closet that hadn't been there a second ago. He moved slowly, deliberately, the way a priest carries a final sermon to someone with precious little time left. An unfiled staff member creates imbalance, he said. An echo, a contradiction. He paused. But there is a remedy. I forced myself up onto my knees. I'm not doing anything else you want. The greeter smiled politely, as though humoring a child. This is not for us. This is for you. He reached into his uniform and withdrew a card. Not a time card. A memory. A real one. My heart seized. It was a cheap photograph. Me and my wife, Mara, outside a diner, both tired and smiling in a way neither of us ever managed again. Her hand rested on my shoulder. My face was full of a softness I barely remembered having. My legs nearly gave out. Where did you get that? It was lodged in your file, he said gently. Part of you the registry preserved. Part of you the school used to craft your replacement. He held it out to me. A lure. A knife. Both. Why show me this? I asked, voice thin and cracking. Because we require balance. You destroyed your duplicate. You disrupted your file. To collapse the registry entirely, his eyes narrowed, smile fixed. It must be fed something equal in weight. My stomach curdled with dread. What does that mean? The lights flickered once, dimming like dying candles. The greeter stepped closer. To break the registry, you must offer it something your identity cannot survive without. He placed a photograph into my trembling hand. You must give a memory with gravity. I swallowed a shaky breath. And if I do, what happens to me? You remain unfiled, free from the building's architecture, free to leave. And if I don't? His smile widened, but not with satisfaction. With sunrise approaching, you collapse. A man without a file becomes a smear, a leftover without context, a shape without a name. My chest tightened so hard it felt like my ribs were bending inward. My memory of Mara, the one good thing left in the wreckage of my life. The small, warm spark that kept me from collapsing into the tile like a broken scaffold. He wanted that. The registry wanted that. The school wanted that. But the alternative, staying here, becoming a mislabeled shadow, becoming another Eli slumped in a closet, becoming another face dripping into wax. I began to shake. You knew I'd come to this, I whispered. You planned this. No, the greeter said softly. We simply understood you. His politeness was a scalpel. I staggered to my feet and pushed past him, clutching the photo like a drowning man holds a rope. I won't do it, I said. I won't sacrifice her. I won't give up what's left of me. A low rumble shuddered through the hall. The building disagreed. Doors swung open spontaneously. Lights flickered strobe fast. The floor reconfigured beneath my shoes. Tile lines shifting like tectonic plates. The school was waking fully. The war had begun. The greeter's voice followed me as I ran. You misunderstand, Eli. Failure is not what breaks you. Refusal is. I sprinted down a hallway that shouldn't exist, past lockers that rattled like teeth grinding in frustration. The walls narrowed. The ceiling dipped. The building was pulling inward, funneling me, hurting me, toward the registry, toward the heart. Sunrise was close. A dull blue seeped through windows that hadn't opened in years. The closer the light got, the more violently the school convulsed. I hit a dead end and slammed my fist into the wall. Tile cracked beneath my knuckles. The school wasn't letting me guess my way. It wanted me to choose. To sacrifice. I pressed the photograph to my chest, breath hitching into soft, shaking sobs. I can't lose her, I whispered. I can't. A voice answered from behind me. My own voice. You already have. I spun. My duplicate stood there. But different. Distorted. Warped from a fall. Skin half restored, half melted. As if the pit had spit him back out incomplete. He stepped forward with a limp, one arm dragging behind as though it had bones arranged in the wrong order. You try to unmake me, it said in a slurred version of my tone. But you only unmade the shape, not the idea. I stumbled back. No, you're gone. I watched you fall. It smiled a crooked, bone-deep smile. I'm whatever piece of you the registry refuses to lose. The walls shuddered like something groaning. He stepped closer. Give the registry your memory, he said softly, and I will fade. Give it nothing. His head jerked sharply to the side, twitching, and we will fuse. And we will be a new file entirely. His hand extended. Come with me. Share the burden. We'll be one. A short, hysterical laugh slipped out of me. A broken, breathless No. That dissolved into tears. I won't fuse with you, I gasped. I'm not losing myself. He tilted his head. You already have. He lunged. I dodged, slamming my shoulder into a door that hadn't existed an instant earlier. It gave way and I fell into the registry chamber. The cabinets towered above me. Names writhed and rearranged themselves. Some drawers slammed open and shut like mouths. Time cards fluttered violently in the air, slashing my arms like paper razors. The greeter stood beside the corkboard, calm as ever. This is your choice, he said. Your last choice. The duplicate stumbled inside behind me, dragging its leg, face sliding into shapes I recognized and didn't recognize. All versions of myself that almost existed. There is no leaving without cost, the greeter said. But you choose the cost. I stared at the photograph. At Mara. At the smile I barely remembered making. My hand trembled. My throat clenched. I'm sorry. I whispered to no one and everyone. I'm so sorry. The duplicate's voice twisted into a scream. Don't you dare. But I moved faster. I pressed the photograph into the registry slot labeled Marrow, Eli, 2025. The slot burned instantly, light flaring behind it like a star being born. The photo curled to the edges. The colors bled. The image bubbled and warped. And I felt it. A clean, sudden knife through memory. The diner? Gone. Her laugh? Gone. Her name. I choked as the sound vanished from my mind mid-thought, like someone plucked the vowel from my throat. I staggered backward, clutching my chest. A hollow space opened inside me, small, cold, final. The registry roared. Drawers flew open. Cards erupted upward in a cyclone of paper. Lights burst overhead. The floor buckled. My duplicate screamed as its body shuddered, collapsing inward. Its face melted into blankness. Its posture shrank. Its voice sputtered into static. It fell to its knees. Who am I? Then collapsed into ash. The greeter nodded once, solemn. Balance restored. I dropped to the floor, sobbing silently, tears rolling down without sound or shape of grief. My chest felt carved out. Empty. Light spilled in through the far window. Real light. Sunrise. Not simulated. Not fluorescent. Not controlled. Golden. Warm. The greeter stepped aside. The exit is yours. I crawled toward it. Each movement hurt. Each breath felt like sandpaper. Each heartbeat pulsed through the hollow in my chest where her name used to live. As I reached the final door, the greeter spoke. Without the memory you sacrificed, the school can no longer follow you. You are unfiled. I looked up at him. Mama, what's her? The words stuck. A hole in my mouth where a name should be. He bowed his head, almost kindly. Go, Eli, before the building learns to want you again. I stood, opened the door, and stepped into the morning. The air outside felt impossibly soft. Real. Normal. But as the door closed behind me, a single thought flickered in the hollow space in my mind. What did I lose? Who did I lose? I couldn't remember. I couldn't even remember forgetting. All I knew was that something important was gone. And that something behind me, the school, the registry, the remnants of myself I left in that burning slot, wasn't finished. I walked into the dawn with a hole in my chest shaped like a woman whose name I traded for freedom. And as the sun rose fully, warming my skin, a bell rang faintly in the distance, miles away, impossibly gentle, calling me back, calling me home, calling me by a name I wasn't sure was mine anymore. I moved 3 towns away, and pretended distance could dissolve a thing that lived on tiles and papers and rules. I changed apartments. I took a job sweeping a diner floor for morning hours. I learned to make coffee in the gray light before the day people arrived. I learned a new pattern of life that tried to keep me small. That didn't work the way I wanted. You run, and the thing you ran from doesn't get tired. It learns to call from far away. Some mornings I woke with no memory of her name, and felt like someone had rubbed a hole through me. I would stand in the kitchen, hands around a mug, the heat burning the empty place in my chest, and I'd wait for a piece of memory to fall into my lap. It never did. Instead, I would find small, useless things, a matchbox with a red stripe, a ticket stub folded 3 times, a key with a name scratched on the ring I didn't know. I would hold them up like proof I still belonged to my own life, and then I would try to make the feelings come back. Mostly they didn't. Mostly I learned to live hollow and functional. Ha. It's strange how practical fear can be. You get used to coping. You get very neat at it. People treated me like I had woken from something and returned. Servers nodded. Regulars said, "You look better," like they understood. I made small talk and kept my hands busy polishing the counter until they stopped shaking. The greeter's voice had said I was unfiled. It had also warned me the building could want me again. So I kept moving, believing that motion could be a kind of forgetfulness too. Months passed. Seasons changed. The world moved without the school. Then one afternoon, in a quiet lull between breakfast and lunch, my phone buzzed on the counter with a single notification, a link to a video. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. I had learned to not click anything that smelled like the school, but something soft in me leaned forward. The clip was short. The first frame was shaky, a child, maybe 10 years old, holding a phone in a school hallway. The camera angle was low, like the kid was crouched down. Behind them, lockers stretched down the corridor. There was that same sick smell in the footage somehow, the kind you can almost taste through video, metal and old polish and something like cut flowers left too long. The kid whispered something. You could hear the hush of a school between classes. Then, the frame tilted as the kid looked up the hall, and at first I saw only emptiness and narrow windows. Then the shot widened and I saw a door. A janitor's door. Heavy, metal, with a little slot at the top like a mouth. The kind of door you don't think about until the wrong thing slides under it. The camera stayed steady on the door as the kid's hand shook. Then, slow as a secret, a sheet of paper slid under the lip and folded into the hallway like an animal slipping onto the floor. The kid zoomed in. The typeface was blocky, cold. I could read it even through the grain of the video. Night custodial position, private facility 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., $40 per hour, no interview required. A slip. The same paper. My mouth went dry. My hands went cold. The kid's whisper turned into a little laugh, a tiny awkward in the throat. Maybe they thought it was a prank. Maybe they felt the same thrill a child feels when something exciting and forbidden happens. They bent forward and nudged the paper with a toe, just to move it, just to see if there was anything attached. The camera shook. In the corner of the frame, as the door crack widened a fraction, a shadow stepped into the light. Not the greeter. Not exactly. A figure. A shape. It stood for an instant, still as a photograph, and then it moved with that wrong. 2 even step the greeter had. It nodded, just barely, like it was acknowledging the kid's presence. The kid stifled a giggle. The figure straightened and walked away, down the corridor, and the camera followed, panning in the same little shakes as the child's hands. For a moment, the hallway behind it looked wrong in a way that made my stomach fall. The locker seemed deeper. The shadows leaned. I watched the clip twice. 3 times. My breath came in a dry little laugh. Ha 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 in the diner's empty air. And then a sob I tried to smother with my palm. I thought I was done. I thought the bell and the stamp and the hole in my chest were behind me. But the video was proof. The school had learned other routes. The kid's footage went viral in a small way. A local channel grabbed it, and then a larger feed picked it up. Comments rolled in with theories and jokes, and people saying it must be an elaborate prank. Somebody called the number printed on the slip. The voice that answered was flat and wrong, like something reading from a script. Nobody asked questions. People laughed and moved on. But I did not move on. The thing that had taught me to survive didn't need the same building anymore. It could send the slip through any crack. It could drop the paper under doors where no one thought to guard against it. It could learn to slither through the world in the most ordinary ways. A piece of paper, a gap under a door, a child's curiosity. I went to the address that night. I shouldn't have. I told myself I would only watch from my car. My hands were steady enough then. I parked a block away. The school in the clip looked small for a moment. Not a cathedral like the one I had known, not the 3-storied beast, but the way buildings are when you're watching them from a distance. Compact, polite, nothing to worry about. The front doors were closed. Lights were on. Parents picking up kids. The janitor waved a broom like a flag. A human figure moving in a human rhythm. I watched from the car until my hands cramped around the steering wheel. He looked like any man who had done a hard job for years. He smiled and nodded to a woman, then glanced down at his door. He bent and pulled up a piece of folded paper as if it had been waiting there naked on the floor. He didn't read it. He did the thing we teach ourselves to do when the world is wrong. He read it and then he laughed and he crumpled it and he threw it away. In some other life, maybe that's all it was. Maybe something slid under doors and people ignored it. Maybe something tried and failed. Maybe that was the end. But the janitor paused when he tossed the paper, and for a second, just a second, his shoulder stiffened. He didn't smile anymore. He swallowed. He turned his face toward the school corridor, toward a shadow that wasn't there. He looked, for a moment, like someone who had been called by a name he had forgotten. He walked to the supply closet and, with 2 slow motions, opened it and reached inside. I don't know what he pulled out of that closet. I only know that when he closed it again, he walked across the hall with a little less brightness in his step. Something about him had shifted. The way he crossed the room was precise, like he was measuring the place he would walk for the rest of the night. He moved with the air of someone who had agreed to something for reasons he didn't understand. I watched him until the parking lot filled and the night clamped on. Then I drove away. I thought about calling the police, about telling someone who could do something. But who do you call when a building learns to slide papers through the world? Who do you call about a voice that sounds like a smile? I had told the truth before, and it sounded like a crazy man's story. I had been the crazy man. I had been the one who stamped the card and fell into a pit. No one wanted that. Weeks later, the clip had become a small urban legend on the feeds. People made jokes. A late-night host used the slip as a skit prop. The janitor in the clip became a meme for a week. The school sent out a press release about safety and policy and community initiatives, and everyone moved on. Except the slip started to appear in other places too. A rural post office, a high school locker at the edge of town, a hospital janitor's cart. Small, simple things that slid into the world like bait. And then more clips, always short, always from someone who stumbled across it by accident. A phone camera in a child's hand. A security cam footage of a paper slipping under a door. A drone shot showing a tiny envelope being carried by wind into a cracked window. Each video was a whisper the school had learned to make. I watched them all. I couldn't help it. My name was a half memory in my mouth, and each clip felt like a brush of that missing thing. They were trying new roads into the world. They were learning to be ordinary. One morning, I woke with the taste of ash and the mute echo of a bell in my ears. I didn't look for meaning. I only knew I had to go somewhere quiet. I went to the diner jet-lagged and took the mop and started the day. A kid from the high school came in, sat at the counter, and unrolled his phone. He showed me a new clip, a child in a far-off city, sneaking a camera under a stairwell and filming as a paper slipped under a janitor's door. And as the kid in the video nudged it with his toe, a hand, thin, polite, reached from inside the closet and slid a small card onto the counter. The camera wobbled. The voice in the clip whispered like a prayer. The kid watching at my counter laughed a little, then swallowed hard. He was too young to understand the shape of the thing he had seen, but he felt the chill. I felt the same. I thought I had escaped a place. What I had escaped was a pattern. Patterns travel. They find new hosts. They learn new tricks. That night, I stood on my porch and listened to the small noises of my town. Distant traffic, the rattle of an air vent, a dog barking 2 streets over. Beneath them all, I thought I heard a bell. Maybe it was the church down the road. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was wind. I went to bed and woke to a text at dawn. A short, anonymous message. Watch the news. A clip was attached. This one was different. It was shot from the inside of a school, the camera tucked under a stair like in the first clip, but higher quality, steadier. A child's voice whispered as they filmed. The corridor was empty at that moment. The hush was different from the others. Cleaner, like waiting for something polite to happen. The kid pointed the phone down the hall. A janitor's door was in frame. A shadow moved past just beyond the door. A paper slid under the threshold and tumbled into the hallway. The kid reached for it with a small, desperate hand. But then the camera caught more. Beyond the paper, just inside the closet, a pair of hands folded with patience. They were not human-colored hands. They were too pale, too smooth. They belonged to something that had learned to keep human shape and had decided to wear it as a uniform. The hands paused, then moved. They lifted the paper. They pressed it flat. They wrote something on it with a pen that burned dark on the page. They slid the pen back inside the closet. Then a finger, one finger, tapped 3 times on the inside of the door. Knuckles soft. The kid screamed. Not with fear, exactly, but with a kind of wonder. They tucked the clip away and ran. The paper the closet had written on was different. The type was the same blocky header, but the pen script below it was neat, careful, and in a hand I'd seen before. Not mine, but a mimicry of mine. A script that copied the little loops I used to write with. On the video, the paper read, Night custodial position, private facility 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., $40 per hour, no interview required. See inside for instructions. I watched the clip on my phone, and my stomach fell into the shape of a fist. I knew what see inside meant. It meant the school could now instruct the human world directly, with ink and handwriting and gentle pulls. It meant it had learned to be persuasive. It meant it could teach people to let it in. The kid at the diner watched the same clip and said, "Dude, that's creepy." He laughed, a small force sound. I nodded, and the laugh dissolved into something like a sob. I couldn't tell which was louder. The clip ended on the kid's sprint through the hall, the janitor's closet door, closing slowly behind him like a mouth sealing shut. The last frame was of the piece of paper stuck under the door, the neat handwriting visible, and then the screen went black. The news in the morning gave it 5 minutes, a short segment with a reporter reading a canned statement about prank concerns and safety procedures. They interviewed a principal who looked tired. They asked the school to comment. They made the whole thing small with bright sets and polite laughs. The video was a meme by noon. People made jokes about creepy janitor clubs. They made merch. But underneath it all was the fact that a child had filmed hands writing instructions for people. The school had learned to send directions into the human world. It had moved past doors and into ink. It used what people trusted: paper, handwriting, a polite set of instructions you could fold and accept like a business card. I sat there with the coffee cooling in front of me and tried to imagine 1,000 slips sliding under every door. I thought of the greeter's smile, the way he taught me the rules with a calm voice, as if he were a man showing a student how to fold shirt. I thought of the way I had stood in light and chosen to give something up. And then I thought of the child in the new clip, a small witness, a new recorder, another human vessel who had brushed against the thing and could maybe warn others. My phone buzzed again. One more message. No words, just a location and a time. A live stream. Someone wrote, "The old high school, 9 p.m. tonight." I wanted to stay away. I told myself I was done. Ha ha, what a joke. I told myself this was not my fight anymore. That freedom was a hole where a name had been. That I had paid enough. In the end, I went because I could not let it lure in the dark without watching. I parked 2 blocks away. I watched a child slip a phone into their pocket and walk toward the building on their own. I watched an empty janitor's door and a supply closet with its mouth closed. The night felt ordinary. The stars were honest. At 9 o'clock on the dot, a bell rang. Not the guttural bell from the school I had burned and staggered out of. This one was small and polite, like a service bell, but it carried the same cadence, the same slow pull. It measured out the night in a tempo the building recognized. Under the door, a new slip slid in slow, patient as a cat. The janitor's feet moved like a man with a habit. He didn't bend. He didn't pick it up. He simply opened the closet and, with a careful motion, took out a pen and wrote a single word on the paper. On the live stream, the child's camera shook as they whispered, "What's he doing?" And the janitor put the paper into an envelope and tucked it under his jacket like it was a secret. Then, and my mouth still remembers the feeling of it, the janitor walked out into the night and did something small and human. He turned toward the camera and smiled. Not a grin, not the greeter's painted smile. Something small, a tired, real smile. "Good night," he said, to the kids, or to the camera, or to the world. He walked away. The camera hummed. The night held its breath. I drove home and put the car keys on the hook and did not sleep. The bell had rung in my chest and would not stop ringing. It is not over. It will not stop. It has learned to ask politely. It has learned to write. It has learned to wear paper like a hand and slip under doors like wind. If you see a slip of paper under your door, if a child runs a camera and whispers, and you find yourself leaning closer, don't be curious the way children are. Don't be kind. Don't answer the bell the way I did the whole time I thought I could bargain with a machine. Because the bell is ringing somewhere now. And somewhere near that bell, a kid with a phone is watching a door. And the paper is about to slide under.